Bridgerton Season 4 tore our hearts wide open and stitched them back together before we even had a moment to breathe. Now, the details emerging about Season 5 are rewriting everything we thought we knew from the books. By the close of Season 4, Penelope Bridgerton had done the unthinkable. She surrendered the quill, stepped away from Lady Whistledown, and walked away from the shadows she'd called home for years. For a fleeting moment, it felt like a final goodbye, like her voice had been silenced forever. But then, just when we exhaled, a brand new Whistledown pamphlet began sweeping through Mayfair, crackling with a fresh and electrifying energy. And that, darlings, is where everything gets deliciously complicated. Someone else has claimed Lady Whistledown's pen, and nobody has the faintest idea who. Here's why that matters far more than people are willing to admit. When Penelope was behind the column, sharp-eyed viewers could sense the truth long before the Ton ever caught on. Showrunner Jess Brownell even acknowledged it openly. They couldn't stretch out the mystery because the books had already given the game away. But this new Whistledown? She exists nowhere in the source material. This storyline was crafted entirely for the screen, which means, for the very first time in Bridgerton history, absolutely no one knows what's coming. Not the readers. Not the die-hard fans. Nobody. And the possibilities are maddening. It could be a familiar face wearing an unexpected mask. Or, and stay with us here, it could be Penelope herself, orchestrating the most elaborate disappearing act of her life. She spent 3 seasons clinging desperately to her anonymity, and the moment she was finally free of it, the freedom felt strangely hollow, almost unbearable. It's not beyond her to conceal something this monumental from Colin. She's had years of practice. Though the fact that her gossip sources have quietly dried up does make others equally plausible suspects. But whoever has inherited the column, one thing is already crystal clear. She has absolutely no intention of playing nice. The Season 4 pamphlet practically promised chaos, and Season 5's Mayfair will be drowning in it. Now, Penelope's story doesn't end with Whistledown, not by a long stretch. The last we saw her, she was bent over a desk, crafting something entirely her own. A novel. With Queen Charlotte's blessing secured and the column firmly behind her, Penelope Bridgerton was finally building something that bore her real name. In Season 5, both she and Colin are expected to return as 2 published authors navigating life, love, and literary ambition side by side. It's a transformation so complete, so utterly breathtaking, that the wide-eyed wallflower we first met in Season 1 feels like a distant memory. And yet, with a bold new Whistledown unleashing fresh scandals across the Ton, Penelope will find herself pulled right back into the eye of the storm. She knows this game better than anyone alive, and something deep in our bones tells us she won't stay on the sidelines for long. Meanwhile, Lady Mondrich is stepping into an entirely new arena in Season 5. She spent all of Season 4 executing one of the most brilliant social masterstrokes the show has ever seen. Single-handedly engineering Sophie's legitimacy in the eyes of the Queen. And her reward? A coveted seat right beside Queen Charlotte herself. On the surface, becoming a lady-in-waiting sounds like a gracious honor. But anyone who has spent enough time in Bridgerton's world knows the uncomfortable truth. Closeness to the Queen is never simply a privilege. It's a front-row seat to every whispered secret, every simmering scandal, and every carefully nursed grudge in the Ton. Lady Mondrich is about to become dangerously well-informed, and that makes her one of the most fascinating characters heading into Season 5. With Lady Danbury stepping back, Lady Mondrich may well prove to be precisely the kind of company Queen Charlotte never knew she needed. And speaking of Lady Danbury, one of the most formidable, most fiercely beloved, and seemingly untouchable women in the entire series, she may not grace our screens in Season 5 at all. Because as Season 4 drew to its quiet, bittersweet close, she shuttered her townhouse and prepared to leave Mayfair behind. Her mission had been accomplished. Alice Mondrich was installed. Her work, as she saw it, was finished. Here is where everything starts and where everything gets complicated at the same time. At the end of Season 4, Penelope Bridgerton did something that felt almost impossible for her character. She put down the quill. She retired Lady Whistledown. The woman who had spent 3 entire seasons hiding behind a pseudonym, engineering gossip, controlling the narrative of an entire social season, just stopped. And for a second, it felt like a clean ending. Like Penelope had finally chosen herself, chosen Colin, chosen a life that wasn't built on secrets and anonymous power. It felt like a door closing quietly and completely. And then the pamphlet appeared. A fresh Whistledown pamphlet started circulating through Mayfair, and it was not Penelope's. The energy was different, the voice was different, and nobody, not the ton, not the audience, not even the people closest to Penelope, had any idea who was behind it. And that single moment changed the entire shape of what Season 5 is going to be. Because here's the thing that people are not fully giving credit to yet. When Penelope was Whistledown, there was always a ceiling on the mystery. The books exist. Readers already knew. Showrunner Jess Brownell even admitted it openly, that they could not stretch the reveal out for too long because the source material had already given the answer away. The show's hands were tied in a way that limited how deep they could go with the suspense. But this new Whistledown is not in the books. This storyline was created entirely and specifically for the show, which means for the first time in the entire history of Bridgerton, nobody has the answer. Not the book readers, not the theorists, not the most dedicated fans who have been picking apart every frame of every episode since Season 1. Everyone is on the exact same level of not knowing, and that is an extraordinarily rare thing for a show that is based on a beloved book series. And it matters more than it might seem on the surface, because it means the show has complete creative freedom with this storyline. There are no guardrails. There is no source material to accidentally spoil the twist. Whoever the new Whistledown is, the show gets to take that story absolutely anywhere it wants, and the audience has no map. Now, when you start thinking about who it could actually be, the list gets interesting very fast. Because the new Whistledown is clearly someone who understands how the ton works, someone who has access to information, someone who is either deeply embedded in Mayfair society or watching it closely enough to know exactly which secrets to reach for. And the pamphlet that appeared at the end of Season 4 was not timid. It was not the work of someone testing the waters. It was bold, it was confident, and it promised chaos. Which means whoever picked up that pen has been waiting for this moment. They knew Penelope was stepping back. They were ready. And the timing of it, the way it appeared almost immediately after Penelope's retirement, suggests this person was watching, paying attention, positioned perfectly to step in the moment the original Whistledown stepped out. And then there is the theory that refuses to go away, no matter how many times people try to dismiss it. What if Penelope never actually retired? What if the retirement was the cover? Think about what you know about Penelope Bridgerton as a character. She spent 3 full seasons hiding her identity from the people closest to her. She kept the secret from her best friend. She kept it from the man she loved. She is genuinely one of the most skilled secret keepers this show has ever written. And now we are supposed to believe that the moment she finally had the freedom to walk away, she simply walked away? That the woman who built an entire empire on anonymity and control just handed all of that power over to someone else without a second thought? It is possible, but it is also very possible that Penelope realized something in that retirement. That without the column, without the voice, without the power that came with being Whistledown, she felt smaller. She had spent so long being that voice in the dark that stepping into the light left her exposed in a way she was not prepared for. And if that is the case, faking the retirement would be the most Penelope thing she has ever done. It would let her reclaim the anonymity she spent 3 seasons desperately protecting. It would let her keep the column while the world believed she had given it up. And it would mean that Colin, the husband who only just learned her secret, would be in the dark all over again. Which is either heartbreaking or brilliant, depending on how you look at it. But even if it is not Penelope, even if she genuinely walked away, the absence of her voice is its own kind of presence in Season 5. Because Penelope knows how this game is played better than literally anyone alive in Mayfair. She built the game, she wrote the rules, and now there is a new player using her playbook in a city she knows inside and out. And she is going to notice things. She is going to pick up on patterns that nobody else will see. She is going to be right in the middle of whatever chaos the new Whistledown is about to unleash. Not because she is looking for it, but because that is simply who she is. The chaos will find her. And that is going to make Season 5 one of the most layered and unpredictable seasons this show has ever produced. Because the mystery is not just about who the new Whistledown is. It is about what happens when the original Whistledown realizes someone has taken her place, and whether she is going to let that stand. Here's the thing about Eloise Bridgerton that makes her the most fascinating character the show has ever built. She has been telling you exactly who she is since the very first episode, loudly, repeatedly, without a single moment of hesitation. She does not want marriage. She does not want a husband. She does not want to stand at the edge of a ballroom in a pastel dress, waiting for some man to decide she is worth his attention. She has watched every single one of her siblings walk down that road, and every single time she has had something sharp and intelligent and completely devastating to say about it. She has been the voice of resistance in a show built entirely around romance. The one character who looked at the whole system and said, "No thank you, I see exactly what this is and I am not interested." And the audience believed her. Most of them completely and totally believed her, because Eloise was not performing her disinterest. She was not playing a role. She genuinely, deeply, with every part of her considerable intelligence, did not want what everyone around her was scrambling to get. And then the show did something so quiet and so patient that most people missed it entirely. It planted a seed in season 1 that has been growing underground for 4 full seasons, waiting for exactly the right moment to break the surface. And that seed has a name: Sir Philip Crane. Now, before you scroll past that name thinking you already know this story, stop. Because the way the show has set this up is so different from what most people are expecting that it is genuinely worth slowing down for. Sir Philip Crane was not introduced as a romantic lead. He was not given a grand entrance or a slow-motion reveal or any of the visual language this show typically uses to signal that a character matters romantically. He was introduced quietly, almost in the background, as the husband of Marina Thompson, the woman from season 1 whose storyline broke a lot of hearts, and whose presence in the show carried a kind of sadness that never fully went away. Philip was there, married to Marina, living a life that the show never let you fully see inside of, and most viewers filed him away as a supporting character and moved on. But the show did not move on. The show remembered exactly what it had placed in that background, and it has been building toward it ever since. Because when Marina died, something shifted, and what the books tell us, and what the show has been quietly moving toward, is that after Marina's death, Eloise sent a condolence letter. One letter, a single polite expression of sympathy, from a woman who knew Marina and felt the weight of her loss. That is all it was supposed to be, except Philip wrote back, and then Eloise wrote back, and then Philip wrote back again. And what started as a formality turned into something neither of them expected: a correspondence. A real one. The kind where you stop performing politeness and start actually saying things. The kind where wit gets tested and honesty sneaks in before you realize you have said more than you intended. The kind of connection that does not happen in ballrooms, because ballrooms do not allow for it. In a ballroom, you are always being watched. You are always being evaluated. Every word is a performance, and every gesture is a signal, and nothing is ever just itself. But in letters, in the quiet space between sending and receiving, something different is possible. And for Eloise Bridgerton, a woman who has always been too much for ballrooms, too loud and too smart and too unwilling to shrink herself down to a size the ton found acceptable, letters are everything. They are the place where she does not have to perform, where her intelligence is not a liability, where she can be completely and fully herself without anyone flinching at the edges of her. And Philip, for his part, was not prepared for her. He wrote expecting someone gentle, someone agreeable, someone who might slide quietly into the role of stepmother to his twins and companion to his grief without too much friction. He wrote expecting a certain kind of woman, and what he got was Eloise Bridgerton, which is to say, he got the exact opposite of everything he thought he wanted. And here is where Season 5 becomes something genuinely special. Because according to the books, and the show has been building toward this moment with extraordinary patience, Eloise eventually shows up at Philip's door. Not invited, not announced, just there, fully herself, unwilling to be what he imagined and completely uninterested in pretending otherwise. And the collision of those two things, his expectations and her reality, is the foundation of one of the most interesting love stories this show has ever attempted. Because it is not built on a glance across a ballroom. It is not built on a dance or a carriage ride or a stolen moment in a garden. It is built on words, on the kind of intimacy that only comes from writing honestly to someone in the dark, without knowing if they will understand you or run from you. And for Eloise, a woman who has spent 4 seasons feeling fundamentally misunderstood by almost everyone around her, that kind of intimacy is the most dangerous thing in the world. Because it means Philip already knows her before she walks through his door. Not the version of her that the ton sees, not the version that makes people uncomfortable at dinner parties, the real version, the one she only lets out in writing. And that is terrifying in a way that no ballroom encounter has ever been for her. But then the show does something even more interesting, because Shonda Rhimes has gone on record saying that the Marina in the show is genuinely a different character from the Marina in the books. And fans immediately understood what that might mean. If Marina is different, then the circumstances around Philip are different. If those circumstances are different, then the Philip the show gives us in Season 5 could be a completely different person from the Philip in the books, which means the entire love story could go somewhere nobody is expecting. The show has that freedom now. It has built enough distance from the source material with this particular storyline that it can take Philip anywhere. It can make him someone who surprises you, someone who is more complicated or more wounded or more unexpected than the books suggest. And that uncertainty is genuinely exciting because it means even the most devoted book readers cannot be sure what they are walking into. And then there's the other possibility, the one that the most attentive fans have been quietly holding on to since Season 2, Theo Sharp, the printing press worker. The man Eloise had a real and electric connection with before that storyline was dropped without resolution. Because here's what the show did with Theo. It gave Eloise a genuine intellectual equal, someone who saw her clearly and was not intimidated by her, someone who existed completely outside the ton, and therefore outside all the rules that have always made Eloise feel trapped. And then it took him away, quietly, without explanation, and fans noticed. They have been noticing for 2 full seasons. And the question that refuses to go away is whether the show noticed too. Whether Theo Sharp is still somewhere in the story waiting to reappear. Whether the show is holding him in reserve for exactly this moment. For Eloise's season. For the storyline that is finally going to give her the love story she deserves. Because if Philip is different in the show, if the circumstances are different, then there is space for other possibilities. There is space for the show to take Eloise's story somewhere completely its own. And whether it is Philip or Theo or someone the show has not even introduced yet, one thing is already clear. Eloise Bridgerton's love story is going to be unlike anything this show has done before. Because Eloise herself is unlike anyone this show has done before. And the show has spent 4 full seasons making sure you understand exactly who she is, so that when she finally falls, you feel every single inch of it.